Good evening and welcome to the third installment of our Ask the Experts brought to you by North County Lifeline. This evening's webinar will focus on suicide prevention and be presented by members of the Here Now team from North County Lifeline. I'm Monet Gardner, the Communications and Events Manager for Lifeline. Without further ado, let's meet our experts.
Hi, Monet. Hi, everyone. Good evening. And thank you so much for joining us for tonight's presentation as we acknowledge World Suicide Prevention Day. My name is Lalaine May, also known as Lala, and I'm with North County Lifeline's Here Now program, a school-based suicide prevention and early intervention program. Today, I have here with me Here Now's mental health clinicians, Associate Marriage and Family Therapist Kat Torres, who has primarily focused on helping youth struggling with depression and family communication throughout her career. Her experiences include trauma therapy, crisis intervention, CBT, DBT, and motivational interviewing. We also have Associate Marriage and Family Therapist Claudio Nunez, who has over 2 years of experience working in suicide prevention with a liking to music, outdoor activities, poetry, and hanging out with family and friends. And our lead clinician and Associate Marriage and Family Therapist Katrina Reyes, who has worked both in Lifeline's full service partnership program and Here Now program, thus gaining quite a bit of knowledge and direct experience with suicide prevention in adolescent youth. It is our opportunity and honor to be our presenters today. Due to the nature of the subject and to be mindful of attendees' privacy and confidentiality, we do want to inform our audience again that this webinar is public and recorded, including the use of the question feature of the presentation. We would now like to take this moment to ask who is currently in attendance for this webinar. There will be a poll that pops up on your screen that gives you several options. If you can please pick an option now. Youth, parent, educator, clinical staff, or other community member. I'll give about 10 more seconds for everyone to fill it in. Alrighty, it looks like we have a really great mixture today. Youth, parent, educators, clinical staff, and it looks like the most is the other community members. Thank you so much again. If anyone needs any clarification on what we're presenting on today, please feel free to use the question option on the side of your screen so the team can address it later during the Q&A. There will also be a few more polls throughout the presentation that we hope you will participate in, and a handout of the resources presented for you at the end of the webinar. We understand that this topic can be heavy and difficult and can be triggering for many. We want this to be a safe place for our viewers and have included the access and crisis line and text line on every slide in the event that you may need assistance. The access and crisis line is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with clinically trained staff that speak over 150 languages and is at no cost to you at 1-888-724-7240. The text line is also available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by texting HOME to 741-741. As a note, you do not have to be in crisis to reach out to these numbers and can even reach out to them if you are in need of services for yourself or a friend. Again, I would like to extend our utmost gratitude for your attendance and participation tonight. Our team is very passionate about opening the conversation about such a tough subject, reducing the stigma of mental health, breaking down the barriers to seeking help, connecting families to resources and services, educating school staff and parents about youth and mental health, decreasing youth suicide in North County, San Diego, and overall creating hope within our communities. Our team has a wonderful opportunity to work with North County school districts to help with this passion and our mission. So to talk more about Here Now, I would like to welcome Claudio to speak.
Thank you, Lala. Hello, my name is Claudio Nunez, and I'm one of the mental health clinicians for Here Now program. And the agenda for today will be as follows. Here Now program, we will be giving a brief review about our program and ACT, which is the one of the main message in our presentation, ACNT. Then we're going over some statistics and numbers And we are going to talk about warning signs. We will learn about how we can identify some warning signs of depression and suicide ideation. And then concerning behavioral statements. And here we will discuss some behaviors that the student might exhibit or statement that they might say is as an indicator of safety concern. We also were talking about the impact of the COVID-19 and how much COVID-19 impact and affect our community, and communicated with youth. In here, we will help you in what will be the best way to communicate with our student, with your children, and when they're struggling with depression or suicidal ideation, what you can do, what is helpful, what is not helpful. And then we'll go over with some self-care, healthy coping skills, and strength. So next slide, please. So here now stands for helping, engaging, reconnecting, and educating. We are a school-based suicide prevention program, so an intervention program. We are the opportunity to go all into the middle and high school or through San Diego County, giving information about the warning sign of depression and how those signs can lead to unsafe behavior, include suicide and self-harm, and where they can get help. We also talk about the bullying with the student in our presentation, how important is to not be a bystander and always inform to the trusted adult. So next slide, please. So the ACT message is ACNT. ACT message is one of the main message in our presentation. Like I said before, A stands for acknowledge. What acknowledging? We acknowledge that the student or friend is struggling with depression and or safety concern, and it is serious. Care, the C is for care. Care, so let's, let the person know that you care. We encourage the student to, ask for help, and they're worried about their friend, and just show some empathy and be there for the person. And the T is one of the key part of the message, tell. Who are we telling to? Tell to the trusted adult. So we help the student to identify some trusted adult into the different environments. For example, at school, find a teacher that you like it, or counselor, or social worker, someone, principal, someone in the school that the student feel comfortable talking with, and encourage them to find it out when they can find them. Where is the office? So there are all the information present to go to talk to them when they need it. At home, what will be the trusted adult at home? Parents, older siblings, grandparents, uncle, someone in home that they can trust to talk. And then outside the school, outside the home, let's see someone in the community. I know that for the, we're not so much opportunity now to go out, but some students have a sport that they practice before the pandemic. So they have coaches, they can reach out over the phone, and sometimes they attended to the church and they have some kind of youth group, youth pastor, someone who can connect it outside, and the community will be another way to connect it with trusted adult. So we try to enhance, to amplify the protective factor for the student, had more option to reach out for help than what they needed. So we encourage them to have the list of the numbers in their phone, and just don't hesitate when they need to talk to someone, just call and reach out for them. If they don't find them at the first time, just keep calling and keep calling. If they cannot reach that one, just go to the next one in the list. But they really need to, have the facility to reach out for trusted adult to get the help that they needed. So now I'm going to ask for the second poll for the 4 quick questions. So let's go to the poll now. It's really important before to respond to the poll. This is really important for us to hear from you, because that will help us to do better and be more effective in our program. So we really appreciate your participation. So the next poll we'll see, the question will be, how relevant and important do you think is to your community? Not relevant, it doesn't happen. Somewhat relevant, it might or might not be happening. Relevant, it is happening, and not sure. So please go ahead, take a few seconds to respond to the questions. Thank you. Okay, we have some good question here. I think it was a lot of awareness about what's going on, and that is, thank you for your participation. Yeah, yeah, it's okay if you're not if you're unaware of this, how much this impact this topic in your community. So I would like to share some statistics with you. Next slide, please. So a statistic, suicide is the second leading cause of death among 11-18 years old in the United States. 90% of the people who die by suicide do display some warning sign. So even though suicide is the second leading cause of death among this group, people typically show warning sign. That's why it's very important to learn about warning sign to reduce this number. Now, 70% are teenagers do talk to their friends about their own suicidal thought. So that's why it's very important to educate our children, our students, because they are on the front lines. They spend a lot of time in school with the student, online, chatting each other, in social media. So they will probably hear about this before we will, and they will have the power to change life and provide hope to the friend. We also want to point out that the rate for suicide attempt is 4 times greater for LGBT youth community and 2 times greater for questioning youth than that of the straight youth. So we want to be respectful and we want to be inclusive for this community as well. So now I'm going to pass to Katrina to take it over.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Katrina, and I'm going to go over warning signs for self-harm. So real quickly, just a definition for self-harm. It is any intentional self-inflicted pain or harm done to oneself. It's important to remember that self-harming does not mean that a person is trying to die by suicide. Oftentimes, self-harm is a cry for help and a way to cope with overwhelming feelings and pain. So youth who engage in self-harm often don't know or don't have healthy coping skills that they can use to help them cope with these overwhelming emotions. So when we think about self-harm, often what comes to mind is cutting, but self-harm can be burning, hitting, scratching, hair pulling. Anything that's intentional and self-inflicted is self-harm. So some warning signs to be looking out for are frequent unexplained wounds, cuts, scars, burns, and bruises. If there's an effort to hide arms, wrists, legs, and their body by covering up with bracelets, long sleeves, and layering clothing. Some teens may not try to hide their injuries and bring attention to them. This can be another sign that they're trying to communicate that they're in pain and that they may need help. So we want to watch out for excuses for all these frequent injuries as well. So if they're saying like the cat scratched me, I burned myself in the oven, I ran into something, or I fell, these are possible warning signs that they're trying to cover up their self-harm. Next slide. So warning signs for suicidal ideation. So some of the warning signs we can be looking out for are changes in relationships. Maybe they're not spending as much time with family or with friends, or we're starting to see that their relationships are becoming strained. Increased irritability by lashing out in anger or having less patience for others. Withdrawing from friends and family more than usual, and if we're seeing that their mood overall is low and sad consistently. Looking out for themes of death, suicide in their music, writing, reading material, conversation, social media, online communications. We can be paying attention to the music and the books that they're reading, watching out for the posts and their likes on social media, and we can even be looking out for warning signs in the conversations that we're having with them. So if there's an increased interest or more questions about death or dying. A lack of interest or a loss of motivation in the things that were once important for them, and having less energy, interest, and enthusiasm for the things like sports, clubs, friends, hobbies. The biggest warning sign that we can be looking out for is when there is a major change from what is normal for that person, though. So it could be changes in mood, energy, behavior. Some warning signs are much more subtle and harder to see. So sometimes if we step back and just look if this is normal for that person, we can try and figure out whether they're struggling with something. It's important to also remember that depression can look different for everyone. There can be changes in sleep patterns. Some people may sleep too much or sleep too little. And eating patterns, some may eat too much or eat too little. And it can look differently. Some people may lash out more while others may withdraw. So that's very unique, and therefore looking back at like what's normal for that person and what's not. Next slide. Okay, so concerning statements and behaviors, these are warning signs that we really want to take seriously and make sure not to ignore them. So any statements directly expressing that they want to take their own life, if they tell you about a plan, access to a plan, and an intent to follow through on it. So if they're saying, I want to kill myself, or I just want to disappear and sleep forever, these are serious warning signs that we want to take seriously. We want to watch out for vague statements or threats, such as like, don't worry, I won't be a problem for you much longer, or if anything happens to me, I just want you to know. If we're seeing that they're giving away or discarding their favorite possessions, writing a suicide note, goodbye texts, goodbye emails to friends, obtain a firearm, knife, or rope, or large quantities of medication. These can all be signs that this person has identified a plan and is probably taking steps to act on it. If we do see these urgent warning signs, what we want to do is not leave that person alone, and we want to take steps to keep them safe. So we can do that by calling 911 and asking for PERT. We can be contacting our local crisis center. Around this area, we have North County Crisis Intervention Response Teams, or we can be calling the San Diego Access and Crisis Line. Next slide. So important notes. So some risk factors that increase the risk of suicide and depression be things like family and personal history and mental health. As we mentioned before, suicide attempts are 4 times greater for LGBTQ youth and 2 times greater for questioning youth than that of straight youth. We also want to be watching out for signs of bullying. We know that 1 out of 5 students report that they've experienced some type of bullying. So physical, verbal, cyber, social bullying. Substance use, loss and feelings of hopelessness, which all contribute to feelings of depression and suicide. But we can also be looking out for protective factors as well. And these are things that help somebody build resiliency and increase their reasons to stay safe. So this can be, you know, them being connected with a support group. It can be family, friends, or in their community. Reaching out for effective clinical care and support. So receiving treatment through therapy or counseling when we're seeing that these signs come up. Having conflict resolution and problem solving skills, cultural and religious beliefs that discourage suicide, expressing feelings of hope and planning for the future. So this can be planning for future plans to travel, to go to college, setting goals for a career or a passion that they really want to pursue. Next slide. So impacts of COVID-19. we know that the impacts of COVID-19 have further increased and complicated various areas of well-being for everyone we know. We're seeing higher levels of stress, anxiety, depression, substance use, and isolation. We're also experiencing feelings of grief from loss of loved ones and loss of our normal routines and daily lives. We're also seeing an increase of social media, which in some ways can be positive because it gives us the opportunity to have connections while maintaining distance and safe. On the other hand, it increases the risk of trauma and anxiety and stress from constantly consuming the news and an overload of information. And also for youth, it increases the risk of experiencing cyberbullying through social media. So here we have another poll for you guys. So have you or someone you've known experienced any of these symptoms? The selections here are none of these, 1 to 2 of these symptoms, 3 to 4 of these symptoms, or 5 or more of these symptoms. Okay, and as we're seeing here, it seems like 30% of 1 to 2 of these symptoms, 30% 3 to 4, 5% 5 or more of these, and 16% none of these symptoms. So as we're kind of seeing, like, it's varying for everybody, but whether we're having direct experience with this or not, it is happening, and a lot of us are experiencing a lot of things during this time. I'm going to pass it over now to Kat.
Thank you so much, Katrina. I'm Kat, and I'm going to be talking about communication, coping skills, and where to get help. So you can be part of decreasing the negative stigma around mental health by making yourself a safe and trusted person to talk to. Whether you're talking to your child, your student, a friend, a fellow peer, individuals are more likely to disclose information if they feel you've created a safe space for them to open up honestly to communicate. We can do this by validating emotions, remaining calm, being empathetic, being genuine. Validating emotions and experiences makes other people feel really heard and supported. Miscommunications and communication breakdowns can lead to barriers that might include like defensiveness, shutting down, or retreating into secrecy. When people feel carefully listened to, those misinterpretations and misunderstandings are greatly reduced. So active listening is the key we want to talk about here to developing healthy communication. This requires you to be present and listening to understand and making observations of what the other person's posture, tone, and emotions are. The more likely, a person is more likely to engage and collaborate with you if they know that you're carefully listening to what they have to say without bias, suspicion, or judgment. This also involves asking questions to confirm that you understand what they're communicating and to clarify to avoid misunderstandings. We also want to point out through this communication, we can identify their triggers. What are those things that really do affect them the most? And then also positive replacement. So, there are some negative coping skills out there, and we can't ever just get rid of those negative coping skills without replacing them with a positive one. Next slide, please. So here are some helpful ways we can be supportive and continue creating that safe space for communication. Again, active listening is the key, along with avoiding judgment. So we can show this by providing undivided attention and having a caring and empathetic tone of voice. So we want to try to avoid multitasking when someone says they need to talk, or stopping what we're doing when they begin to talk about their struggles in a conversation. We can stay calm even when the other person is not, and that can act as kind of a model to help reduce overall stress and may help them to calmly and more rationally make decisions as well. We can demonstrate empathy and understanding for each other's experiences, and this will transform their anger and conflict into positive growth. Being genuine creates that presence and trust that encourages them to keep that communication open with you. We can often sense when somebody is uncomfortable with a topic, so it's really important to talk directly and specifically about depression, self-harm, and suicide. When we tend to shy away from these terms or skirt away from the topic, it gives others the message that we don't feel comfortable talking with this, and they may feel like they don't want to share anymore or disclose anything else. So remember that building trust takes time. And so your child, your student, your friend, they might not open up to you the very first time, but you giving them that positive experience is encouraging them to try opening up again, and also encouraging them and letting them know that you are a trusted person to come to if they're struggling in the future. We want to point out a very important one on here. It says, do not leave them alone. If somebody is disclosing you know, a depression or suicide safety concern, we want to, we encourage you to even maybe practice how you might react to somebody, so that we can give the most warm and open and caring, you know, concern for them. So if somebody discloses a safety concern, we don't want to leave them alone, because they could either change their mind, they could flee, or they could try to harm themselves at that time. And again, safety is priority. So we want to either use an electronic or other means to contact somebody, or we want to get somebody to stay with them while we go for help. Next slide, please. So we included here a slide that discusses some of the phrases, actions, and responses that have not been helpful. So we've gathered these over with our discussions from the students over the history of our program, and we've grouped them into the main topics and then some specific examples underneath. Often our intentions are positive, but we just don't realize how a struggling individual might interpret or react to what we're saying. As we look through them, I don't want anyone to feel ashamed or embarrassed if they have done any of these in the past. That's why we're all here tonight, is trying to learn how to make everybody safer and better. Again, we may not have realized what happened, how somebody's reacting. So the first one would be ignoring, minimizing, or dismissing. We want to make sure that the person knows that this is a very serious topic and that we do take it seriously. Saying things like, you'll get over it, or this too shall pass. Sure, this too probably shall pass, but they're in the trenches of it, and we need to try to help them through it. Avoiding shock, you know, embarrassment or shocked expressions. So those high emotions might cause the other person to kind of retreat in and stop sharing. And we don't want that. We want them to remain calm, so that they feel they can keep sharing with us. Giving harmful advice or degrading efforts. So depression can be debilitating. And, you know, even some of the smallest things can seem very difficult. So we never want to point out what somebody should do, or they need to do, or they're not doing. We want to always come from a strength base in what they are doing and what we can do to help that. The next one on here is challenging, debating, or bargaining. So we want to avoid anything that, again, gives a negative connotation or lets them know that, you know, their struggle is anything less than important. You know, we may come from a place of trying to show them positive things, but we just want to be careful how we say them, like, hey, I noticed these positive things in your life, instead of using that as a bargaining chip as to why they should stay around. Panicking, preaching, patronizing, and shaming. So this is a very large one we see. Along with depression and anxiety come a lot of feelings of low self-worth and feeling like a failure. And when some of these occur, we're hearing from students that, you know, it makes them feel even more like a failure. So we definitely want to avoid these, and again, come from positive, strength-based. Turning the conversation towards you or blaming somebody else. So when somebody comes to you and is struggling, they're looking to you and saying, I am struggling right now, I need help. While we might come from a place of trying to understand and let them know, hey, I've felt like that too, the key is to keep the conversation on them and avoid pushing it off on anybody else that could make it seem like, you know, it's less of an issue for them. And then the last one, promising to keep it a secret. So when safety is concerned, we never want to keep that a secret. We always want to keep the person's safety as a top priority. So that might mean you need to tell somebody so that wherever they're going, however they're doing, we can make sure they get the correct care and that they're safe. And then the very last one on here is not allowing interrogating, or not allowing them the time to process. So sometimes when we feel like the finger is pointed at us over and over and there's too many questions, it can actually cause us to close in and not want to say anything or not know how to answer. We want to be very open and ask open-ended questions to allow them to give us the information. Next slide. All right, so I want to emphasize that no one is perfect, and we're all, it's completely normal to struggle sometimes. There's no one single solution, and each of us comes with our own skills that may be beneficial. There are things we can do to make a positive difference, though, and one of them is participating in our own self-care. So self-care is mindfully taking time for yourself. It's giving that compassion and care that we give to others to ourselves as well. Self-care is really unique to each person and may look different for each person. But the key is to make it intentional and make a habit out of caring for yourself. The more deliberately that we practice caring for ourselves and our well-being, the more resilient we become and the better we're able to cope with our stresses and struggles that come along. We can begin this by identifying our strengths. So strengths can be the things you do well, the things others like about you, you like about yourself, your hobbies, projects, accomplishments. Say like, I consider myself caring, funny, and I love arts and crafts. So from there, we take those strengths and we use them to create healthy coping skills. Coping skills are those things that help us to tolerate stress, negative emotion, or struggles. And we want to emphasize healthy coping skills because there are some negative coping skills out there that can harm you. And we want to point our direction toward those healthy coping skills and replace the negative ones with positives. So healthy coping skills have the power to distract you, soothe you, relax you, and even change your mood in a positive way. So somebody whose strength is, say, they're athletic, may feel better when they do sports, jogging, or exercise. Someone who loves to read may distract themselves with a good book or journal or write their own story. Somebody who's artistic may draw or paint, and somebody who considers themselves funny may enjoy watching comedies or just enjoy talking with others. We want to identify what helps you feel your best and what creates pleasure for you. And once we found those coping skills, we want you to literally stick them on your calendar. Like if you need to, schedule an appointment for them just to make sure you're really doing them. We can sneak in our self-care too. I mean, are you going for a drive, walking to the mailbox, brewing your coffee, your kid is napping, you're waiting for your next class to start or for your next client? Allow yourself a few minutes, just sit and relax. It's really an important factor in your health. You can schedule, monthly or weekly visits with friends and family, even virtually right now. Do some self-pampering, like maybe a nice bath, meditation, quiet time, or even just take 5 minutes to just breathe and relax. If it's difficult to find the time during the day, you can even do it at night and just think of maybe the 3 best things that happened that day. Check with yourself regularly. Do you feel tapped out? Do you need to do more? Do you need to do less? And surround yourself with great people. The more you practice self-care, the better equipped you are to help others as well. So don't be afraid to ask for help and support for yourself or for somebody that you know. This is an amazing example of self-care, just to care enough about yourself or another person to seek that support. Next slide. Oh, actually, now that you know a little bit more about self-care, we're gonna have a poll come up here. When is the last time you have practiced self-care or used a healthy coping skill? Was it in the last day, in the last week, in the last month, over a month ago? Or maybe you just don't remember. If you could answer that for me now, that would be wonderful. All right, so it looks like, wow, 51% of people practice it within the last day. That's great. 36 in the last week, 4 in the last month, 4% over a month ago, and some 4%, you don't really remember. And this is a good thing just to keep in mind for you, that maybe I haven't been really deliberately practicing it, or maybe I should look back in some of the things that I do on a regular basis that I've just put in my schedule really do help me calm down, but I didn't really consider them self-coping skills before. All right. Next slide, please. So we have some important resources for you. So that San Diego Access and Crisis Line that we talked about, available, any time of day, 24/7. So 1-888, so it's a typical toll-free number. 724, because it's open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and then 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and 0 because it costs absolutely nothing. They also have the live chat and that text line we told you at 741-741. We do encourage the San Diego Access and Crisis Line because, number one, it's available in all languages, but number two, it is local, so they'll know more about the resources in your area. Another great resource is that National Suicide Prevention Hotline. 211, amazing resource. Okay, so you can call them up and let them know what things you need. If you're looking for therapy, financial assistance, housing, diapers, it doesn't matter. You can call them up and ask where you can get these resources, and they can let you know. They can even text it to you so that you have the information and the phone numbers. It's wonderful. We talked about safety, and so we always encourage our students to have a safety plan, and you can actually create one of your own on the MyApp 3 app on your Android or iPhone. And then we have the Trevor line for LGBTQ+ youth. They have really great resources for where to stay connected. They also have an online chat there, and the website and a phone number. And then, of course, 911. So when you call 911, if you're having a mental health crisis, you can specifically ask for the PERT team. That is the Psychiatric Emergency Response Team. And those are people that are specifically trained in mental health that can come talk and assist you. So we encourage everyone to have these on them in some way, whether it be in their phone, on their fridge, in your classroom, on your student website, somewhere that is really accessible for others to be able to go and access these if needed. Next slide. So thank you guys so much for being here today. We're really passionate about this topic. We're really passionate about decreasing suicidality, depression in North County. And, there's a spot in there for questions, and we'll be opening up to our panel right now to answer those questions. And if you have any new ones, you can put them in there now as well.
And questions can be in regards to the topic, any of the topics that we spoke about today, anything about our program in specific, any one of our speakers today. So feel free to ask anything. Got a few coming in. Just a couple more moments.
Okay, are you guys ready to take some questions?
Yes.
Okay, the first one that's come in, I work in substance use prevention. What are some good ways to respond to a teen using alcohol or marijuana to convey it's not healthy without judging?
Claudio, since you
Claudio
have some
might be best for this.
Mm. Yeah, I was thinking in the yeah, well, first of all, is the depend the situation, how what kind of drug he's been using, and also be the pros and cons to use it. So also don't be, don't be judgment, and try to cooperate with the family. Maybe looking for a uh, um, family session, do some like a family therapy. There will be another option. Um, Also, I would recommend it to uh, assess if any thought or any ideation to use the substance in what way that he's using it. If using it in the recreational way, or they are using as a curiosity, or they are using for hurt themselves. So that's another assessment. Is really important to see if they have a plan to use the substance to hurt themselves, and just be open to talk about openly about it, and see, find another way to, if they're using the substance abuse for coping with some kind of issue, they try to figure out another way to cope with this, looking for a healthy one. Ask them how you have been dealing with this without using. Have you been success about it? If they had say yes, well, just keep trying that healthy way instead of using drug for it, and just be there for them. And I also working with the pros and cons to let the student or the adolescent figure it out. Oh, that's the pros, that's the cons. So which one will be more healthy for me instead of using. So that will be probably one of the quick advice I can give it to you.
I'd also
Okay.
like to add in there that, yeah, just like you were saying, Claudio, the purpose of it. And so a lot of times we see that you can't just give somebody the psychoeducation about it and expect that they'll automatically change their mind. However, you can let them know what's the feeling that you're looking for, what is it that you're trying to do with this, and then explore with them, even practicing with them other ways that they might be able to get that similar like adrenaline rush or relaxed feeling without using it, and see if they can maybe just try other things. We never want to push, because when we push, that's when they resist, and that's when we don't make any connection at all.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Any advice for educators during online learning models? How do we handle a suicidal student?
First, we would like to encourage, I know different schools have different policies in intervening when there are any safety risks or high risk students. So going back to your admin team to asking what the exact policy is. Another thing is just being open with them. If you feel like they are struggling with any suicidal thoughts or depression, meeting them where they're at, even starting out a conversation as, how are you doing? Would you like to talk today? There are some who will be ambivalent to speaking or even apprehensive to speaking to an adult. But once they do find that safe space with someone or know that somebody does genuinely care, they do have a tendency to open up. So just being that presence and person that they can actually talk to instead of someone that they feel that they would fear or feel that they'd be judged by. Claudio, do you have anything?
Yeah, and I think it's all about that connection and making sure that you do come across as somebody who is not judging them, but is rather looking to help them. So again, with distance learning, you're looking for those signs that they might be showing or those things that they might be saying, and connecting them, you know, with others who might be able to help. So a really good thing is just to do a separate little appointment with them, or you know, email them and just let them know, you know, I wanted to talk to you a little bit because you know, it seems like you've been really sad, or you know, mention those things to them and ask them how they feel about connecting with somebody. Tell them you can do a, you know, there's counselors at the school for that, refer them, give them the access in crisis line, just really providing them with those resources and those things so that, you know, and of course, if there's a safety concern, letting any adults that need to be aware of that situation know, so that everybody can just remain in a safe space.
Yeah, and also aligned with the Kat says is that also inquire a little bit more if the student have any plan or any ideation or anything like they want to do to hurt themselves. So inquire a little bit more in a soft way, you know, just try to create connected with them and just asking open questions. Like we said in our presentation, we directly, are you planning to do something today? If you want to, you know, if you have a suicidal ideation, where are you thinking about it? How are you thinking about it? You want to do it. So just ask a specific question openly without problems. So that will be the best way to, I mean, figure it out how we can help that student as soon as possible.
Okay, next question. For someone who has been around a family member struggling with suicide and substance abuse, how much and how can you know if they have been affected?
I think just opening up the dialogue first and foremost. If there has been a loss in the family, or if there's been a history of any drug use or any indicators of substance use, being that person, again, being that kind of safe person and that open person for them, and just check in with them. How are you doing? You know, I am seeing that this is happening right now, or, you know, this event has happened. Is there anything that I can do for you at this moment? I'm seeing that, you know, some of your behavior has been different recently. Is there anything going on? Is there anything that I may help you with? And opening up dialogue that way. Kat, Claudio, do you both have any additions to that?
Yeah, see, well, pretty much agree what you say, and just like Lala said, just being open, be there for them, and sometimes it's hard to create a connection because it's a lot of shame or a lot of, you know, kind of then don't really want to feel comfortable talking about the topic. So that's what we had to look in doing this presentation, to try to reduce the stigma and just, again, be genuine and just be open and just ask questions. That's will be
It's
helpful.
all about how you approach the topic. If you come out, you know, although a lot of emotions come through us when we see somebody that's struggling like this, usually also including anger, but that's gonna just make the person shut down more. So we really want to come from a place of caring, and the more that you show you care, the more willing they are to work with you and to try to work through this. So always coming from a very calm place and just seeing, just talking about what you've noticed with them, and then talking about, you know, I looked up or I found some resources for you. And again, is there any way that I can help you, or would you be open to seeing somebody about this? Just really coming from that non-judgmental place.
Yeah, that's why we are encouraged to identify trusted adults, because sometimes students are, or teenagers in general, they are very afraid to talk with parents about this kind of emotion. Even they love them, we don't say that they don't, but sometimes they don't have the connection in that type of subject, topic, emotional. So they sometimes talk with somebody else, so they feel comfortable talking with the grandparents or the older sister, but not with the parents, because they are afraid to be judged, or they say, no, that's a teenager thing. Typical comment that sometimes parents do say. So that's why it's really, really important, like Kat and Lala said, being open and just be there for them, just make them feel comfortable and to talk about it.
Thank you, Claudio.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, our next question. How can I help someone who is on a self-destructive path but is in denial and doesn't want to be helped?
That's something that we see often, especially in our youth. And I feel like having open conversations is the same as therapy. There isn't really a second chance for a first impression. So if they are going through this event in their lives and someone's coming to them in a very negative or judgmental way, that will close them off more likely for any instance of help in the future. So I'm going to bring that up again, coming in non-judgmentally and going into that conversation that way. Possibly maybe the first question that you can ask or even say is that, hi, hi Lala, I just want to say that I'm here for you, and I'm here if you need a talk or you need an ear, and maybe offering some resources at that moment. You can even tell them, I found these resources. You might not want to look at them now, or maybe don't want to deal with it now, but maybe later on or when you're ready, you could take a look at these.
So
Yeah.
one of my favorite things to talk about is actually Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, because even though, he's sad, his friends still invite him to everything, no matter if he's gonna, show up or not. They still invite him. And I think that's a really big key to seeing somebody else on a self-destructive path, is that maybe they don't have that insight or that motivation for their coping skills, but you can help them with that. Just because somebody says no doesn't mean you should stop inviting them to do stuff or encouraging them. So really just coming from that place of like, hey, I just need to get out of the house for right now. I'm going for a walk. You want to come with me? Or just little things like that lets them get out, get some air, and do something productive. Might just be one step closer to what they need.
And also I want to add that someone with the self-destructive behavior, normally they have, one of the main things is validated. It's really important to validate they normally have a lot of pain behind, and they have, have been probably some kind of abuse in the past. I don't know what is the situation with these cases in here, but self-destructive behavior normally is a lot of pain, something like it happened probably in the past, and might be some kind of abuse. And so validation is huge in these kind of cases. And also solution-focused approach would be appropriate, probably doing some, showing the student or the person, whoever, I don't know the age, or I may be young probably. So what they can do to they said that it doesn't want to be helped and self-destructive behavior. So in what way he's doing self-destructive behavior, and it's probably they're using that to cope with some kind of pain or some kind of madness or sad or anything that it's been affecting this person. So ask them, have you ever feel better without using self-destructive? If they say yes, well, what was about it? How you feel about that? So this the student reflect themselves that they can be better without doing that destructive path, and just make the student reflect himself instead of telling them what to do. When they realize that they cannot do something good for themselves, they start to get motivated to get out of the destructive path and acting more healthy. But it takes time, take a lot of patience, the opportunity to the student, let them to reflect themselves that there's better option to continue with his life.
Thank you. Okay, we just have time for a couple of more questions. The next one is, how is the Here Now program reaching students who are distance learning?
So we are coming in the virtual way also. We are providing Check Your Mood Week virtually through a HIPAA compliant platform. We are doing presentations in their virtual classroom in smaller groups, so it's a little bit more intimate. And if there are any questions, we're able to answer them then and there. And then we are also providing our follow-ups through telehealth, through GoToMeetings as well. And it's been a little bit of a struggle trying to figure out where we fit into the classrooms, but I'm hoping we either get the ball rolling and everyone gets comfortable in it, or maybe schools will start again and we'll go back to in-person.
Okay, and have you had any success partnering with local hospitals for suicide prevention?
Actually, no, and that is a great question and something that we should try to do. Right now, our focus is the middle schools and high schools, but we could do some outreach to other organizations or other parts of the community. So I think that is a great idea to do so. Thank you for that.
Okay, and our last question for the evening, what's the best way to help or approach someone who's struggling with suicidal thoughts?
Again, it's to be very open and direct about it. When you skirt away from those topics or saying the word depression, suicide, self-harm, it makes it feel like that's icky and we're not supposed to talk about that. Versus, just saying the words lets them know, like, hey, this is something that does happen and I understand that and I want to make sure that you're safe. So somebody that's struggling, again, you want to try to understand how long it's been that they've felt this way, if they have any plans, means, or intent on ending their life, if they've had any previous attempts. And again, we, as much as we want to stay friends with somebody or try to avoid them getting upset with us, I would much rather have my friend upset with me for a little bit than have my friend not here in the world anymore. So letting people know, if you're at a school, letting the school know, if you are able and have good connection with their family, letting somebody from their family know so that they can keep that person safe.
And really utilizing those community resources, especially the Access and Crisis Line. It's kind of like the commercial where it says it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Just letting them know that that is there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Even if they're just struggling throughout the day, it doesn't have to be a crisis, they can call that number. If at midnight, they're worried about a friend or they're worried about themselves, they can call that number, and it's a very safe space for that. But just utilizing those resources out there for them.
Yeah, and it's a good point because we have a lot of experience on school in our assessment. They have trusted all around, but they feel more comfortable talking with somebody they don't know. It's like they're in a neutral position. It's amazing. When we go into the assessment at the school, the student, they say, come on to talk to us. And they disclose a lot of issues that they never talked to nobody else before. And that was the first time they saw us, and they are super open to talk about it. So that give you the kind of idea. They are really comfortable talking with somebody else, which is not part of the family, sometimes not even they're the trusted adult, but they still, for this kind of issue, they feel more comfortable talking with someone else. And that's the Access a Crisis Line text, and all the resources that we provide today in our presentation is just a great resource that they can have it and use it when they need it.
And if
Thank
we
you.
didn't get to your questions today, my contact information is on the chat. If you would like to send me any additional questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Yes, there were a few questions that we didn't get to. I apologize. We did run out of time. I do want to thank everyone for spending an hour with our Here Now team, and special thanks to our Rockstar Here Now team members for lending us their talent, their time, and for the dedication that they have for the youth in San Diego County. If you are looking for more resources or need more information, please do visit the North County Lifeline website. Download the resources that we have attached to this webinar presentation in the handouts. And we also do want to put a plug in for 2 events that we have coming up. We have our last installment of the Ask the Expert series coming up on October 20th that will focus on domestic violence prevention and intervention. That will be at 5:30 as well. And then next week on September 17th at 10:45 a.m., we have our 2020 Lifeline Awards. So please be sure to check out our upcoming events. Thank you again for attending, and this concludes our webinar for the evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.